time for me to think bigger and scale up my forever world. But in order to do that, I'm going to need a lot more resources. So in this episode, we are going to make an iron farm, because as you can see, I'm really lacking it right now. And after this episode, it's going to be a lot easier to expand this world. But before we do that, we need to address some of the loose threads from last episode, mainly this huge hole right by our villager breeder. And I think the best thing to put here is a quarry crane type build to kind of integrate the land that we have working here, so I'm going to jump right into it. And a huge shout out to these two commenters, Mew Industries and Snipers Join the Lobby, for their great recommendations of building a mine. I really appreciate all the feedback and love you guys are giving to this series so far. And I think that this area is looking a lot better now. Just adding these small little terraform projects really do make the world feel a lot more lived in. And I really enjoy these smaller scale builds because it allows you to do a lot of detailed techniques like using the grindstone for the crane and kind of filling out all these little mossy areas down here. And obviously it's not a entirely functional hole, but you know, it serves its purposes of giving a reason for this hole being here in the first place. But now that we have tied up that loose end, I think it's time to move on to bigger and hopefully better things, and that is the main build of this first episode. And I think it is high time that we have our first truly large-scale build of this world. And what better way than to start with a castle? Now we have a lot of land over behind the quarry and the villager breeder, and of course we have this nice little village here right on the ocean with a river running through it. And I think this is really the best place to build our first castle. In particular, I think that this little hill right here would be the perfect spot for the first castle of this world. And the terrain looks a little choppy right now, but I think with a little bit of flattening, a little bit of terraforming, we can make this land work perfectly for this build. And I think that keeping with the general theme of the other builds will really work here, because obviously we want to work on cohesion and we want to work on making sure everything looks like it's in place. So I got a lot of digging to do, so I'm going to get on that now. Unfortunately, I'm tearing down these guys' little home here, so I think with the new update coming, I'll find a new home for these guys over by this farmland pretty soon. And that was just over 3 hours of digging compressed into 20 seconds. So if you guys are liking this series and liking this video so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Obviously the terrain's still looking a little rough, but we got it flattened out and I think it is ready for building. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this kind of little jut out area over here, but maybe we'll do something with that in the future. But now it's time to focus on the main build of this episode, and I got a little bit of a shulker chest monster going on over here. And here are all the materials that aren't even put down yet. But I'm going to get on making the foundation of this build, and I'm going to get right on that and I'll be right back. And here is the outline of this castle, and obviously it looks a little barren right now, a lot of gray, but I think you can see the vision of it, and let's get a little better view. I definitely wanted to go with the stone, like I said, to keep everything cohesive. And the biggest challenge I think with building at this scale is getting these shapes right. You don't want to do all squares, you don't want to do all flat roofs, you don't want to do all the same roof, you don't want to have to worry about it looking too monotonous. And I hope that by adding a bunch of different layers, adding a bunch of different, squares, rectangles, different roofed shapes, I am hoping that that will alleviate that problem. But it still has a lot more work to do, so I'm gonna get on that and enjoy this time lapse. I want to briefly interrupt this time lapse to kind of talk through my thought process with this build. I wanted to keep the block palette similar to the other builds in the area, the stone, deep slate, white, stone, diorite type block palette, and I think this works in two ways. The first being that, one, I think it just generally makes the builds look nice. I think the contrast in the colors of the gray stones to the darker deep slate on one end to the white diorite calcite on the other end. But I think it also adds a lot of storytelling to the world. Obviously, stones in general would be readily available, easily accessible materials in a medieval world. It would only make sense for them to use materials like this with a big castle build like this. And this story building is definitely something that I want to expand on in this world. I think it not just adds to the videos themselves, but it also gives me some motivation, gives me some ideas in general about what I want to build. And now that I've kind of reached the later game of Minecraft, if there even is one, I think expanding on this world building aspect of my forever world is definitely something that I look forward to in future episodes. It is always nice getting that first cinematic view of a build where it actually looks like it's coming together. And what better place than to do on top of our villager breeder. But flying in, it definitely gives the scale that I was going for. It still needs some details, which we will be doing very soon. But I always love just flying through, getting that cinematic view, checking it out from all different angles to make sure I didn't make any mistakes here, because with a build this large, it's definitely possible. Let's see if we can thread the needle. Nice. But I think it is looking good, and with a little bit of a detail, it will definitely look a lot more finished. I will say this is really the first time that I've made a build on this scale in survival. Usually when I'm doing stuff like this, I am doing it in creative, so this is definitely a process that I'm glad, because I think it's looking like it's turning out. But, it is a learning process. As you can see, it seems like I've made a little bit of a mob farm, which of course I don't normally have to worry about in creative. But I think looking at it from the inside, and all of the windows really add, kill this guy, but it really adds to the scale looking at it from the inside, and it makes it a lot worth it, because doing all this in creative is one thing, but doing this in survival and getting all the materials yourself, it really makes the build a lot more meaningful. And man, talk about these shaders making this look absolutely cinematic. Let's see if we can get a good angle. Now that we've got the foundation and the accents built up, I think it is time that we start properly decorating this castle. will say one of the biggest areas that I was most worried about when doing a build on this scale was the detailing. I think when you are building this large, it's very easy to kind of make everything look the same, make everything look uniform, and in general with building, but especially with medieval builds, in reality most stuff is not, uniform. One of the most important aspects of doing medieval builds is adding character to your builds, and obviously detailing plays a major part in that. If you were doing a modern or a futuristic build, uniformity is totally fine in those situations. In many ways it makes it look better. And if there was one little building tip that I would have for this episode, it is to use the idea of what I call designed imperfection. Of course, when building, you want it to look perfect, you want to look beautiful, you want it to look like it's the greatest build ever. But in real life, there's a lot of imperfections in builds, especially when you're talking about medieval, older style builds. And when I was making this build, and my builds in general, I have kind of 3 areas where I try to implement this designed imperfection. And the first and probably most obvious is the block palette itself, and I am by no means the inventor of using this style of building, but I feel like using the multiple block types, it really does add to the idea of imperfection. It makes no wall look the same. Every wall has a different combination of stone, brick, andesite, cobble, what have you. And the same goes for all the other, the white stone types, the deep slate itself. Using this technique just makes the builds look a lot more interesting in general. And the second technique that I use, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on in the episode, is the idea of adding variance in terms of the structure itself. When building a castle, or really any large-scale build, it's really easy to kind of build the same 9x9 rooms and just kind of mush them all together to make one big build. But by adding difference in height, difference in width, and depth, it really does make a build look 10 times better. And similar to the block palette and using different types of blocks, it's a really simple way to make your builds look a lot better. And if you can make the frame of your build look interesting, you are already way ahead of the curve and on track to making an amazing Minecraft build. The final tip that I would have for this idea of designed imperfection is to add just simple differences to the detail. As you can see from the time-lapse right now, the stone parts of the castle have a spruce detailing, while the diorite white stone parts have a dark oak detailing. And additionally, even though most of the windows follow the same framing, some windows are more arched, while some windows are flatter. And then some windows might have the lantern on the top, while other windows might have the lantern on the bottom. And it's stuff like this that can really just add slight differences that make a build look a lot more interesting. One thing I did additionally for this build is that the diorite portions of the castle use a lot of glass for their windows, whereas the stone base of the building, which you'll see shortly, use spruce fences as the interior of the windows. And these are just 3 ways that I will often use to make my builds look more detailed and interesting. And the beauty of Minecraft and the beauty of building and being creative in general is that you can have totally different ways of going about it, but everyone's build's different and everyone's builds can look good. So if you have any questions about my tips, or if you have any tips of your own, please make sure to leave them in the comment section below. I always love hearing different ways of trying to improve my building and trying to help other people improve theirs. Alright, and that is the main part of this castle built up. And I am really liking how the details turned out. I think it's a good combination of making it look homey while also, making it look a bit more built up and structured than some of the other builds in this area. And I definitely think the flowers were a great addition to the detailing. The additional color really does make the build pop as a whole. And now getting a look at the build with some of this cinematic lighting, it definitely looks beautiful with this sunset yellow color kissing the side of the castle. You can also see from this panoramic view that I've added some foliage and leaves to the siding and the roofs. I think that adding this is really the easiest way to add a lot of character to a build. Unfortunately, we still have a bit of a mob farm in here, gotta deal with these creepers, and it's not exactly looking finished on the inside. So I'm gonna get on that and I will be right back when I'm done with that. Okay, and I welcome you guys to what I think I am going to call the Iron Castle. And while it might not be obvious why it's called that right now, anyone who has built any farms in Minecraft will be able to tell what the design on the floor is looking like, and that is because it will soon be home to the Iron Golem farm. I will give you guys more of a tour as I kind of move into this place in the future, but for now I need to get on this iron farm. And with the much needed help of the Lightmatica mod, I've built out the frame. Villagers go in there, drop down, get scared by the zombie, and hopefully spawn some of their Iron Golem friends. I obviously love punishing myself doing 2 villager-centric farms in back-to-back episodes, but it's now with the breeder over there, it is definitely a lot easier to move these guys around. And this guy's not gonna fall. Oh, there, kind of. Alright, that works out. Make sure I don't hurt him. And he joins his buddies. Let's get that zombie stop glitching from the Lightmatica mod. They're looking cozy in there. Alright, now to lure the zombie in. And obviously this is always a tedious task, but I think this should get him to pathfind right into the boat. Good. Let's see, break that. Make sure we do that so the column can't spawn there. And what better to name a zombie than the totally not self-promoting, totally not like and subscribe. Totally not self-promotion. Totally. Alright, let's close this guy up. And with that being done, all it should take is a little bit of a trapdoor flip and it should be good. Alright, so it took a little bit of more finagling with it to get it up and running, but it is up and running. As you can see, the golem sitting in there getting burnt alive. Poor guy. Just wanted to protect his friends. And the way this farm works is actually pretty interesting, using the iron golem to flip the trapdoor and re-aggro the villagers. And obviously they fall down here, perish to the lava, and I go down to collect their iron. And I have kind of built a very, very, very primitive collecting area right now. Our next task will definitely be to improve this, but go down here, walk through here, and you see the chest, and we've already got a good amount of iron, so seems to be working. But this tunnel will not cut it for collection area, so I'm going to dig out an area and I will be right back when that is done. Alright, obviously not finished, but having a open area definitely makes it look a lot better. So I need to get on some of the decorating, but the iron farm's been working. So I am kind of trying to go for a dingy kind of wine cellar type look to this, and I went for a stone, andesite, cobble, mossy stone brick flooring, and that will definitely add to the dingy kind of wet cellar look. And I think adding these little like piles of slabs make it kind of look like it's a lot very run down, make it look like it's very old, like it's been here for a while. So definitely adds to the storytelling of the build. But I had to make sure all these little piles of rubble look perfect. And now with these detailing in and a deep slate roof, this is looking a lot better, and I really liked how this turned out with all of the detailing and making it look like a dingy cellar build. The iron farm's been running for a while, had a little bit of issues, but I fixed it, and we've got a good amount of iron in there so far just from this little build. And if we ever need additional storage, I added this little section over here, so I don't think we're ever going to have to worry about iron for a long time. And as I said, we did run into a couple problems. This was Morting's iron farm design for 1.21.11. And one of the problems is that, as you can see, the villagers are not getting scared. And I did have to make some changes, and that might or might not be like and subscribe number 2. But I think it has something to do with the trapdoor being a little bit of a problem. So if you make that build, just be aware of that. And hopefully, as you can see, it's still working. And hopefully it stays that way, because when it did, it was working very well for me. I always love using bubble elevators because it always makes me feel like that clip of sigh popping out the bottom of the stage, and it always is good for a good giggle whenever I'm playing. Now that we have the main castle build and the interior iron farm all set up, I think it's time to look outward, and this area definitely needs some work. And I think the first thing I need to do is terraform, but I definitely think it needs to start looking a lot more like this area. It's all about making everything feel connected and nice and cohesive with each other. This path and stretch of area is actually really important because it serves as the connector between the village over here and the castle that is going to be a more built up part of the first city. And this area really needs to do that job of transforming an area from a farmland to the more built up area. So I'm going to get started on that path now and enjoy. So I went down below the gatehouse and the villager breeder and looking for some... Oh, let me pick up these diamonds real quick actually before I get onto that. But I was looking for some tuff, and I found this area down here, and it is absolutely stunning. The lava with the shaders, just like I mentioned in an earlier episode about the nether looking amazing with shaders. I mean, these huge lava pools look great. Got like stalagmites, tights, I never know which one, falling from the sky. And I think that, you know, there could be something cool with like a mine shaft or something that we could do down here. And just as I did before, perched up here, this is really the money shot with this path. Let me make sure I finish it up. There we go. And as you can see, I kind of went for a transition area, obviously keeping the dirt and the path block and the coursed and rooted dirt of the farmlands in the other area. But I wanted to transfer to more of a stone path, more of a built up, as I mentioned, path. And I think the granite does a good job, and then the gravel into the stone and the cobblestone and the tuff. Let's get like a very tippy top angle of this. And I think the shape and the look works well. It's always hard transferring from kind of like a dirt brown block to the stone block because, I mean, really granite is your only option, but obviously in this setting it works out perfectly. And this is just the main pathway from the breeder to the castle, and I'm definitely going to branch out and build up different houses in a future episode, so any ideas for what those can be, leave them in the comments below. But for now, I think it needs a little bit more decorating, and hopefully when I come back, it'll be a much prettier exterior for this castle build. And the first thing I want to tackle in making this area look a lot more pretty is getting rid of this floating chunk of stone that has been bothering me ever since I started clearing that area and building up the castle. It has been sitting in the corner of my eye, just floating there. I don't know why the land generated so weirdly over here. There's like literally a 3-chunk swamp that you can kind of see from the trees below me. And, you know, all these floating islands, so I don't know why it grew so weird over here. Definitely gonna have to fix that up as I moved into this village area. But now it's time to get into the real decorating. And that is looking a million times better. I mean, just adding the foliage to the outside really does bring a build all together and make it pop so much more. And of course, make it feel like it actually belongs in the world. I think it's missing the final touches, so enjoy the time lapse. And with those last 2 trees, I think those are the finishing touches on the Iron Castle build. And, you know, always adding the foliage and the trees to a build really make it look a lot better. Let's get the nice aerial shot of the land. And it really has inspired me and made me look forward to building out the rest of this area, because I think this centerpiece of the Iron Castle really kind of lets your imagination run with everything that can go into this little valley area right here. But with that being said, guys, I think that is going to be the conclusion of this episode. Thank you so much for watching if you've gotten to this point. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below if you enjoyed it, or if you have any recommendations, feedback, criticism, whatever. Make sure to comment down below. I will definitely respond. And let me know if you enjoyed this longer episode. I know a lot of people have been commenting down below saying they wanted the longer episodes, so make sure you let me know if you enjoyed it. And with that being said, thank you one last time for watching this episode, and until next time, see ya!